Today, though, we can take a look at the full Indeed schedule, which is out. And we knew a decent amount of yesterday, or at least a couple of chunks of yesterday. But seeing the full thing, I think, is genuinely really interesting, Ant, because the first part of the season has almost all of the Commanders' travel. They are at Tampa. They're back here against New York. They're at Cincy. They're at Arizona. And Cincy to Arizona is a short week. So that kind of stinks. You have your longest trip of the season from Cincinnati on Monday night to Arizona on a Sunday. And Arizona is the longest trip of the season on a short week. But then you don't leave the I-95 corridor again until week 15 at New Orleans. Because you're Cleveland at home. At Baltimore, you don't even leave the greater DMV, we'll call it, to avoid any controversy of whether Baltimore's in the DMV or not. Carolina, Bears at home, Carolina at home, at New York, so you can take a train. They probably will fly, but you could. Steelers at Philly, same thing, could take a train. Home Dallas, home Tennessee, bye week. And then you're at New Orleans. And ultimately, your final road game's at Dallas. I feel like I'm missing a road game on this schedule. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, I got them all.
Yep.
Wow. They're spread out / at Baltimore only feels so road gamey. At New York, at Philly only feels so road gamey in terms of the travel. And in terms of kind of a repetition, in terms of travel standpoint, you can't ask for a much friendlier schedule than this. We knew based off of the opponents that Washington was going to have to travel fewer miles than anyone else in the league. But we knew that going in, and to see it on paper is like, wow. And to have this stretch in the middle of the season, the second month, 5, 6, 7, 8, where you literally don't leave the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, with Baltimore being the farthest you go. And frankly, to get from Ashburn to Baltimore, it takes almost the exact amount of time that it would take you to get from Ashburn to Landover. So, we're really talking about the same commute for the players and the coaches. It's pretty good. On the other end of the equation, week 14 bye with no Thursday nighter to give you a mini bye in the early part of the season. That's nasty work by the NFL. Week 14 bye for a second straight year.
Third, I think, isn't it?
I don't think it's the third straight year. I think it's the second straight, but maybe.
I think it's third.
Still, that's either way. Even if it's just the second, that's nasty work right there.
But would you rather have an early bye? An extremely early bye like week 6, or would you rather have week 14?
So I would rather have 6 versus 14. I think I'd rather have 6.
Really?
And I go back to something that Lorenzo Alexander taught me a long time ago when we were prepping for his season. It actually turned out, I think, before his last season in Buffalo. And I think they had an early bye or whatever. And he's like, honestly, that's the halfway point of the season. Because by the time you get through training camp, if you got to think of their season, their grind really starts in August, or late July. So if you're going to go late July into all through August for training camp, a couple of preseason games, which the starters aren't playing that much, but those practices are tough, and it's a lot of mental load. You have the week to reset before the season, but by the time you get to week 6, you're in mid-October. That's basically the halfway point between July and January. So, yeah, maybe I'd rather have week 8, week 9, the true halfway point of the regular season if I'm a team who's got playoff aspirations, because I'm going to be playing a little bit longer. And really, what the Commanders had last year wasn't too bad. You have week 5 Thursday night football, so you're not too burnt out by the time you have to double up, if you will, Sunday, Thursday. Then you get the mini bye. Then you play a bunch of Sundays, and then you have your actual bye. Although the Commanders had the weird bit last year because they played on Thanksgiving, where they had one game in 20 days, and that sucks. That sucks for them. It sucks for us. It sucks for everybody. Don't do a Thursday night in the like Thursday Night Island in the middle of a bye. Like that's a wacky bit. But yeah, I think like week 4, having no extra time off until week 14 is pretty rough.
But I think if you are gearing up for, playoff aspiration, or you have playoff aspirations, I think the week 14 bye would be better than week 6. I think ideally everybody would love a mid-season bye. We just haven't, had that luxury, to be honest. Like the last 2 seasons, we've had week 14 byes. Before that, we had an extremely early bye, I think.
Yeah, I feel
Week
like the
4.
1 year they had like a week 4, like something stupid early
week
bye.
4. And then like before that, we did actually have mid-season byes, but
yeah, you just get caught in that grind. I think playoff teams would also, like some of them, if you're getting hot, then you get a bye and it kind of cools you off. Like they're not going to like that. Then like there's no science to it, and every player is different. Nevertheless, every team.
yeah.
But back to the games that are being played. I think the thing that stands out for me early on in this schedule is you're going to get a real test of the secondary early. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. But then we got even more because we didn't know the week 3 game. We knew Tampa, we knew New York, we knew Arizona. But you're going to get Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, followed by Malik Neighbors, followed by Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as of right now, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. Those are your first 4 games. Then you want to test your mettle, your physicality. May I introduce you to weeks 5 through 8? Cleveland, maybe the most physical team in the league. Baltimore, if it's not Cleveland or San Francisco, it's them. Carolina's got some nastiness to them defensively. And they've tried to rebuild their offensive line. Like I'd imagine they're a pretty run-first team that's going to try to get downhill with those big guards and mash you a little bit, which is not going to feel very good coming off Cleveland and Baltimore. And then Chicago, I have no idea what they are. Other than they've destroyed you the last couple of years. And at least you're not playing them on a Thursday night that feels existential as the last couple have. So then you get at New York, Steelers, at Philly, Dallas. So you have like that little you got 3 of that 4 is divisional games.
That's also the weird thing about the schedule. Like we play both of our New York games before we even play another divisional rival.
I feel like that always happens with Washington and New York. What is it about them putting Washington and New York early? And like I guess there was McLaurin's rookie year, they played the Eagles in game 1. It feels like they never play Dallas early.
Nah, we don't play Dallas early.
It's like if it's not late November, you're not seeing Cowboys Commanders on the schedule.
Yeah.
So then you got Tennessee bye at New Orleans. Talk about a road trip draft number 1 pick right there.
Yes, sir.
New Orleans in December. Philly at home, Atlanta at home. That could be a Saturday. And then at Dallas, week 18. Who knows? Because it's week 18 and those are the rules. We'll take your calls. What do you think of the Commanders' schedule? That's it. Tampa, New York, Cincy. There's your Monday nighter. Arizona, Cleveland, Baltimore, Carolina, Bears, Giants, Steelers, Philly, Thursday. Dallas, Tennessee, bye. New Orleans, Philly, Atlanta, Dallas. Some of you have that memorized by now, and you have thoughts. Share them with us. 301-230-0980. Take your calls next on The Huffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. I think the other thing that kind of stands out for me about this schedule is the bulk of NFC games in the back half of it. And obviously the Commanders are going to play more NFC teams, and they're going to play more NFC teams late because we know that they're going to always end with divisional opponents. The schedule is going to be kind of packed with more NFC opponents or more divisional opponents late. But like when you think of the teams that you could be competing with for a playoff spot, like New Orleans is that kind of team. And there they are. You're at their place, week 15. We have no idea what Philly's going to be. I'd imagine that they're going to be better than Washington, depending on what Jalen Hurts is. But there they are, week 16. Atlanta, we're pretty sure is going to be a lot better this year. They got first-year everything. First-year coach, first-year quarterback, first-year coordinators. the whole deal. Like, what are they? They're sitting there week 17. And then, of course, we'll see what Dallas is, and there's week 18. But you got a chance to move and shake in the NFC. And even, Tennessee is obviously there in week 13 for you as an AFC opponent, but Dallas, Philly, New York, like that's how you start the back half of your season. So there's just it's a schedule to me, Ant, that as we look at it right now, and we could have probably done this segment yesterday just looking at the opponents, but now like it really comes into clarity seeing them in order and kind of how it all falls out. There's opportunity everywhere. Now, we still have no idea if the Commanders are going to be any good. And that's ultimately going to be the deciding factor of what their record is. But if I look at starting with Tampa, New York's right there. We'll see what Cincinnati is with Burrow coming back off the injury. Arizona, who the hell knows what they are in year 2 under Gannon. Cleveland, giant question mark. Baltimore's got new coordinators, or a new coordinator on defense with McDonald bouncing out, and they lost some personnel. There's a lot of question marks on this schedule. And the Commanders, of course, are always a question mark on, Commanders versus whoever. It's question mark versus question mark. But it feels like a very outside of the Chiefs, like transitional time in the NFL. And I have no idea where a lot of these teams are going to fall.
Yeah, I'm also just looking at a lot of the teams from a quarterback standpoint. A lot of the quarterbacks on our schedule don't necessarily scare me per se.
Right.
The year after we won the division, we had Mahomes, we had Aaron Rodgers, we had
murderers row.
Yeah, quarterback galore,
and they got murdered.
Yeah. So I look at the schedule now. I mean, you got Burrow, you got Lamar.
Well, let's go through it. So you got Baker with a new offensive coordinator, right?
Well, Baker's cool. He doesn't, I'm not
Baker's,
shivering.
Right, you're not shivering, yeah. And he lost Canellis.
Yeah,
Canellis is now in Carolina. So you got new coordinator and let's call him historically uneven quarterback. I like Baker more than most people do, but it's not like I love him. I'm not like I'm psyched if that's my quarterback for sure. You got Daniel Jones with another no, they kept their coordinator, right? They kept Kafka, and Dable's kind of the coordinator anyway.
Yeah.
But it's Daniel Jones.
But he's the Commander's killer.
That's true. Week 3, Burrow coming off injury, new coordinator. Week 4, Kyler coming off injury. Kind of. He finished last year.
Yeah, he did.
Cleveland, Watson. Is he good anymore? Doesn't look like it. Coming off injury, who knows? Lamar, okay, feel pretty good about that one. Week 6, that's going to be tough sledding.
Yeah.
Carolina, Bryce Young, knew everything. Is he good now? We'll find out. Is he good by then? We'll find out. Week 8, Caleb Williams, we'll find out. Commander killer Daniel Jones again. Week 9. So far, through 9 weeks, I would say Daniel Jones is the third scariest quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, that might have to do every bit with his record against the Commanders, but behind Lamar and Burrow, you're doing all right. Steelers, Russ, who knows how he fits with
Fields.
Arthur? Who knows how either of them fits with Arthur Smith? So you got new quarterbacks, new coordinators. At Philly, Jalen Hurts was an MVP 2 years ago, and last year he really wasn't that good. Dallas, Dak's a very, very good quarterback, but, he has his weeks. And Dan Quinn, I'm sure, knows him very well. That's going to be fun. Week 13, Will Levis, okay. I have no idea if that dude's any good. I have no idea if he'll be playing by week 13. Week 15 at New Orleans, he's a big question mark, right? Derek Carr, capable, certainly capable, but wasn't that good last year. So in year 2, does he find his stride? Week 16, Philly, we talked about Hurts. Week 17, Cousins, presumably, coming off injury. How does he gel in year 1 in Atlanta? And then week 18 at Dallas, it's Dak potentially in a big spot, which is the worst place for Dak to be. Dak in not big spots, amazing. Dak in big spots, historically, not great, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, to your point, obviously, we have no idea what Jaden Daniels is going to be, and presuming that he's a starter. And if it's not Jaden, it's Marcus Mariota, and we know what that looks like, and it's not great. So I don't know how many of these you're going in feeling like you got the better guy, but certainly I feel like you go into these with the defense that you have put together here. If you're Dan Quinn, feeling like, yeah, we can win. We can win every week. Like, yeah, Baltimore's going to be a tough sled. Cincinnati, that could be really tough sledding if they're cooking. And especially if they don't trade Higgins. But every other game, is there an offense that terrifies you on their schedule, a quarterback that terrifies you? And again, I'm not picking them to win probably more than 8 games this year, and I might pick them less than that because I learned my lesson last year. But it's not this is what happens when you're bad. And we haven't, for all we know, New Orleans or Philly or Atlanta is like a 12-win team this year. So, and I mean, shoot, even with their terrible end, Philly was damn near a 12-win team last year. But as of now, it looks like a very competitive schedule. That's what I would call it.
Yeah, I think we can go in it. And this is my problem with the offseason, the schedule. I look at these teams, I look at the quarterbacks, I look at all of it. And I always go into the season thinking like we can win some of these games that we should win. And, we end up falling flat on our face. And that's the only thing I hate about the offseason. I just get too excited,
Yeah.
Oh, this could happen. Our defense could do this.
And you tell yourself every year, I'm not going to do it this year. I'm trying.
All right. And I'm right there with you, Craig. I'm not going to do it this year.
I'm trying to be – because, you stop seeing everybody else and you just see your own, and you're like, oh, I like this little double-barrel 7-on-7 thing. And Jaden seems to get the ball out pretty good. Wow, this defense is creating some turnovers. That's cool. Because, the example I've been using is last year offseason, Eric Bieniemy comes in. Oh, man, he's really sticking it to him. It's up tempo. They're running a bunch of plays. I love that. Their conditioning's going to be better. And even week 1, I remember I did a whole thing on their conditioning in week 1, how sharp they were in the fourth quarter against Arizona, and how I was like, this is why they did all that work in the spring. And the rest of the year, they were not very good in the first, second, third, or fourth quarters. The fourth quarter didn't matter for a lot of games for them by late in the season. So who knows if their conditioning was any good or not, because they weren't competitive early. But also, Bieniemy was all over everybody's ass to be like, you got to do this. We got run it again. And instead of us being like, oh, that's a sign that there's a lot of confusion and none of the players know what they're doing and they're probably really bad teaching this offense. This is a huge red flag problem. We were all like, Bieniemy's on it. Yep. Turns out, good, clean, crisp practices might be a better alternative to a coach yelling his head off every other snap.
Yeah.
So that's at least the optimism, hope that we're selling this year, or that I'm looking at this year. But I'm also like, maybe I just reserve judgment. But I don't know how good a radio that is. So there's that.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.